The microphone hit the floor. Steve Harvey's hand went to his chest. 200 people in the Family Feud studio stopped breathing at exactly the same moment. The game board still glowed behind him. The cameras were still rolling. But the show, the laughter, the competition, the carefully timed jokes, all of it stopped the second those words left her mouth. My father saved my life when I was dying, and he's standing right here. Nobody knew what Steve was about to do next. Not the producers. Not the audience. Not even Steve himself. Rewind to 45 minutes earlier. It was supposed to be just another taping. The Miller family from Phoenix, Arizona, Father David, Mother Susan, and their 3 daughters, had made it to Family Feud after months of waiting. The oldest daughter, 28-year-old Rebecca, stood at the front podium. She had the kind of smile that lit up a room, the kind of energy that made producers pick families for the show. Steve Harvey walked onto the stage doing what he does best. The jokes came easy. The audience roared. David Miller, the father, a quiet man in his 50s wearing a borrowed suit that was slightly too big, looked nervous under the bright lights. So David, Steve said, doing his signature lean against the podium. What do you do for a living, man? I'm a mechanic, Steve. Been fixing cars for 30 years. 30 years! Steve's eyebrows went up in that way that always got a laugh. Man, you can probably fix my car just by looking at it, huh? The audience laughed. David smiled. It was going exactly as scripted. But behind that smile, behind those studio lights, was a story nobody in that room knew. Not yet. The game started. Normal questions. Normal answers. The Miller family was doing well. They'd already won the first 2 rounds. Rebecca was the family's secret weapon. She had quick reflexes and quicker wit. Every time she hit that buzzer, she hit it with confidence. Then came round 3. Steve walked to center stage, card in hand. All right, Miller family, this one's for 200 points. Top 6 answers on the board. He looked at the card, then at the families. We asked 100 people. Name something a parent does that shows unconditional love. Rebecca's hand slammed the buzzer first. Steve pointed at her. Rebecca, what you got? She opened her mouth. Then closed it. Her eyes went to her father. Something changed in her expression. The smile was still there, but now there was something else. Something deeper. She started, then stopped. The studio was quiet. 5 seconds of dead air, an eternity in television. Steve noticed. He always notices. You okay, sweetheart? What Rebecca said next would stop the show, shatter every protocol, and reveal a truth so powerful that Steve Harvey would break character for only the 3rd time in 15 years of hosting. They donate an organ, Rebecca said, her voice cracking. They give you a kidney when you're dying. The answer board dinged. Number 1 answer. But nobody cheered. Steve's smile faded. He looked at Rebecca, really looked at her. Then at David. Then back at Rebecca. His hand went up, signaling the control room. Hold up. Hold up a second. The music stopped. The lights stayed on, but the energy completely shifted. 200 audience members leaned forward in their seats. Rebecca, Steve said, and his voice had changed. No jokes now. No performance. Just Steve. Baby, are you telling me? She nodded, tears already forming. My father gave me his kidney 3 years ago. I had renal failure. I was on dialysis. I was dying, Steve. The doctors said I had maybe a year left. And my dad. Her voice broke completely now. My dad didn't even hesitate. He just said, take mine. David Miller's face crumbled. His wife grabbed his hand. The other daughters started crying. The competing family on the other side of the stage was crying. The audience was crying. Steve Harvey dropped his cards. They scattered across the blue carpet. And he did something he'd never done before. He walked away from center stage. Walked past the podiums. Walked directly to David Miller, who was now openly weeping, trying to hide his face. "Sir?" Steve said, and his own voice was thick with emotion. "May I give you a hug?" David nodded, and Steve Harvey. The host, the comedian, the man who'd interviewed thousands of people, wrapped his arms around this quiet mechanic from Phoenix and held him while the man sobbed into his shoulder. The cameras kept rolling, but nobody was directing them. The control room had gone silent. The producers were crying. The cameramen were crying. One sound technician would later say it was the only time in his career he had to wipe tears off his equipment. Steve pulled back, both hands on David's shoulders. "How long did it take you to decide?" David's voice was barely a whisper. "About 3 seconds. She's my daughter. You don't think about it. You just do it." Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. Steve turned to Rebecca, who had moved from the podium to stand next to her father. "And you, sweetheart. How are you now?" "I'm healthy, Steve. I'm alive. I got to finish college. I got to get married last year. I get to live because my dad." She couldn't finish. She just grabbed her father's hand. Steve Harvey, for the first time in his career, took off his jacket. His signature suit jacket. The one he wears in every episode. He draped it over David's shoulders. "You wear this," Steve said. "You wear this for the rest of this show. Because today you're the real star here. Not me. You." The audience erupted. Not applause, it was bigger than that. It was a standing ovation that lasted 4 full minutes. The competing family left their podium and came across the stage to hug the Millers. Security guards were crying. A production assistant had to sit down because her legs wouldn't hold her. But Steve wasn't done. What happened next would become the most shared moment in Family Feud history. He turned to the audience, then directly to the camera. "Cut the show," he said to the control room. "I don't care. Cut it." "Steve, we can't." A producer's voice came through his earpiece. "I said cut it. I'm not playing a game right now. These people need something more than a game." He looked at the Miller family. All 5 of them now gathered together at center stage. "When you found out you needed a kidney, Rebecca, how did you tell your family?" She wiped her eyes. "I tried to hide it at first. I didn't want to be a burden. But I got so sick I couldn't hide it anymore. I collapsed at work. The doctors called my parents. When I woke up in the hospital, my dad was already getting tested." "Did the doctors try to talk you out of it?" Steve asked David. David shook his head. "They explained the risks. They explained the recovery. They explained everything. I didn't hear any of it. All I heard was your daughter needs this to live. That's all that mattered." Steve's jaw tightened. He looked away for a moment, composing himself. When he looked back, his eyes were red. "I have daughters," he said. "Every father in this audience has children or knows someone who does. And we all want to believe we'd do the same thing. But you actually did it. You didn't just say you'd die for your kid. You literally gave her a piece of yourself so she could live." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. Extracted a business card. "This is my personal number. My assistant's going to hate me for this, but I don't care. You call me. Anytime. If you need anything, and I mean anything, you call me. Your daughter's wedding, your grandson's graduation, Christmas dinner, I don't care. Your family now." David stared at the card like it was made of gold. "Steve, I can't." "You can and you will. That's not a request, that's an order." Behind the scenes, something unprecedented was happening. The producers, who normally run a tight ship, had made a decision that defied every television rule. The show's executive producer, Mark Feldman, made an announcement through the control room. "We're not cutting any of this. I don't care if we go over time. I don't care if we have to cut other segments. This airs exactly as it happened." Back on stage, Steve had gathered both families together. "The Davis family," he said to the competing team. I know you came here to win money. But I think we all just witnessed something bigger than money, didn't we? The Davis family patriarch, a man named Marcus, stepped forward. Steve, our family would like to forfeit. Give the win to the Millers. What they have, that's worth more than anything we could win here. Steve shook his head. No, sir. I appreciate that, but that's not how we're doing this. The Millers won this game fair and square. But you know what? He turned to the camera again. Production, I want both families to get the full prize money. Both of them. I'll write the check myself if I have to. The audience went wild again. Both families stood together, arms around each other, sobbing and laughing at the same time. But this is the moment no one in the studio, and no one watching at home, ever saw coming. Steve asked Rebecca, Do you have any siblings who weren't a match? She nodded. My younger sister Emily. She tried to donate but wasn't compatible. She was devastated. Steve looked at Emily, standing at the back of the family group. Come here, sweetheart. Emily, maybe 23 years old, stepped forward hesitantly. You were willing to give your kidney too? She nodded, unable to speak. But you couldn't because you weren't a match? Another nod. Steve put his hand on her shoulder. Let me tell you something. Your father gave the kidney. But you were ready to. That matters. The willingness to sacrifice, that's what love is. You're just as much a hero as your daddy. Emily broke down completely. Her family swarmed around her. Steve stepped back and let them have their moment. He turned to the audience one more time. This is why I do this show. Not for the laughs, though I love making y'all laugh. Not for the money. Not for the fame. For moments like this. When we get to witness real love. Real sacrifice. Real humanity. The cameras captured everything. Steve's jacket still draped over David's shoulders. The business card clutched in his hand. Rebecca holding her father with one arm and her sister with the other. Susan Miller, the mother, with both hands over her heart, mouthing, "Thank you," to Steve over and over. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. When the show finally resumed, 17 minutes after Rebecca's answer, the energy had completely changed. It wasn't a game show anymore. It was a celebration of family, of sacrifice, of love that transcends any prize money. The Miller family went on to win the game. When they hit the fast money round and won the jackpot, Steve handed David the oversized check. This money's great, Steve said. But you already won something bigger. You won 30 more years with your daughter. Maybe 40. Maybe 50. That's the real prize. After the cameras stopped rolling, Steve Harvey did something he'd never done. He invited the Miller family to his dressing room. Spent an hour with them. Listened to the full story, the diagnosis, the surgery, the recovery. He met Rebecca's husband. Held their baby daughter. Told David he wanted to be there when that little girl graduated high school. I mean it, Steve said. I'll be there. You send me the invitation. The episode aired 3 weeks later. Within hours it had gone viral. Steve Harvey stopped show for real hero. Became the #1 trending topic on Twitter. The clip on YouTube hit 10 million views in 2 days. 50 million in a week. Comments poured in by the thousands. I've never cried watching Family Feud before. This is why Steve Harvey is special. He sees people, not just contestants. That father is what real love looks like. I'm calling my dad right now. Major news networks picked up the story. Good Morning America interviewed the Miller family. The Today Show did a segment on living kidney donors. Steve appeared on Ellen and broke down crying again, telling the story. That moment changed me, Steve told Ellen. I thought I understood sacrifice. I thought I understood father's love. But David Miller showed me something deeper. He showed me that real love doesn't think. It just acts. 6 months later, the impact was still growing. The National Kidney Foundation reported a 340% increase in living donor registrations. They called it The Miller Effect. David's local hospital created the David Miller Award for living donors. Steve flew to Phoenix for the ceremony, unannounced. He walked into that ballroom and everyone lost their minds. Rebecca finished her master's degree. Sent Steve a graduation announcement. He sent flowers and a note. Your father gave you life twice. Make it count. 1 year after the episode, Steve revealed something nobody knew. That jacket I gave David? He donated it to the Kidney Foundation. They auctioned it off for $125,000. All went to help people who can't afford transplant expenses. The jacket now sits in the National Kidney Foundation headquarters. The plaque reads, "This jacket belonged to Steve Harvey. He gave it to David Miller, a father who gave his kidney to save his daughter's life." The business card became legendary. David never called. When asked why, "Steve gave my family dignity. He made us feel seen. That's a gift I can never repay." But Steve called David. Every few months. On Rebecca's transplant anniversary. On birthdays. Just to check in. 3 years later, another turn. Emily became a kidney donor coordinator. She's helped facilitate over 100 transplants. Steve flew out to surprise her at work. Turned it into a Family Feud special about organ donation. Raised $3 million. The legacy continues. That 17-minute segment became the most awarded Family Feud episode in history. 2 Emmys. A Peabody Award. But ask Steve what it meant. Awards don't matter. What matters is families having conversations about organ donation because they saw David and Rebecca. That's the real award. The moment everything stopped became the moment everything changed. For the Miller family, it was validation. Proof that their pain had purpose. That their sacrifice mattered. For Steve Harvey, it was a reminder of why he does what he does. Why he shows up every day. Why he makes people laugh but also makes them feel. For millions of viewers, it was permission to be vulnerable. To show love. To sacrifice. To be human. That microphone is still on the floor of Stage 7 at the Family Feud studio. They never picked it up. It sits in a glass case now. A reminder that sometimes the show must stop. Sometimes the jokes must pause. Sometimes television needs to make room for real life. And real life, on that day, looked like a father who gave his daughter a kidney. A host who gave his jacket. A sister who found her purpose. And a family that showed the world what love actually means. Not the word. The action.